Welcome to Michiana Main Lines. Today we're going to be looking at some repurposed railroad bridges in South Bend, Indiana. Mainly we're going to be looking at the Angela Bridge, which was recently finished in its repurposing. But we're also going to look at Michigan Street, Leeper Avenue, Howard Park, and Lasalle Avenue while we're at it. So let's get started. This is a look at the Angela Bridge right now and what the result is of the renovation of it. Now a trail connector for bikers and walkers. Let's look at some of the history of this line over here. First of all, looking at our familiar map for anybody that watches any of these videos. What we have here is South Bend, of course the north-south X Michigan Central coming out of Niles and into South Bend, and then the connector that ran through the west side of South Bend. The arc X marks the spot of the Angela Bridge. Now this section of track was actually called the MC connector, which MC standing for Michigan Central, because it connected this Michigan Central line running north-south out of Niles with New York Central lines down on the south side of South Bend. And there was dual ownership here. You see this red dash line to the left was New York Central ownership, to the right Michigan Central. So the bridge was firmly in Michigan Central territory. Just a brief look at the timeline here. Michigan Airline 1905, Michigan Central 1916, and then the familiar litany of railroad names as we progress through the years. New York Central, Penn Central, Conrail, Norfolk Southern, and then finally abandonment of this section of track on the bridge in 2012 with an adverse abandonment, and then rail was removed. Now, Norfolk Southern never actually operated this line. It was last operated by Conrail in the late 90s. Taking a look at another map here, the Conrail ZTS map, just to show a little bit of detail. Here's the bridge and the track crossing it. You have the north-south line coming out of Niles. Last use of this line was in the late 90s, and that was primarily for delivering coal to the University of Notre Dame and even St. Mary's. The coal line trail is a little bit of a misnomer. Coal was definitely a big part of this line, but it wasn't just about Notre Dame coal. There was also numerous coal yards on the line, as well as other freight customers. And most importantly, this line in the early years was a major link between Niles and South Bend, just for the movement of overhead traffic. Here's a view of kind of 1965, an overhead view of the bridge. And you see the overlay of what the streets look like today. Now there's a roundabout where Riverside Drive meets Angela Boulevard. Back in the 60s, Riverside Drive just connected right through here and connected to Angela Boulevard. So things have changed quite a bit through the years. Also back in here are apartments now with their own road system leading into them, but you get a look at the bridge. Here we get an old shot looking back in the circa 1954 period. This is courtesy of Monon.org and New York Central engine 7538. You know, that's definitely going back with a steam engine. You also see a switch engine in the consist, and you can kind of tell by looking at those freight cars that that definitely was a scene from the past. Lewis rag photograph. Here's a Lewis rag or Raj. I'm not sure how the pronunciation is on that. Around 1956, an E8 number 4018 crossing the bridge. Here's a look at the American Freedom Train from 1975. That's a David Corkhouse photo. That's the way the train came in to be parked alongside the old St. Joseph High School on Angela Boulevard. Originally, this train was intended to come in from Niles from the north, but there was concerns about the curve off of the main line in Niles where it swept around the Simplicity pattern plant. And so they decided the path of least regret was to bring it in from the south side and through South Bend utilizing the bridge. Here's another David Corkhouse shot of a mixed freight crossing the bridge. Jeff Strombeck, 1976. Judging from the leaves on the trees, this probably was sometimes in the summer after the April 1st startup of Conrail. So this would have been early Conrail operation, still using a Penn Central lettered locomotive. Another Strombeck photo with another freight coming south out of Niles across the bridge. That tractor you see being pulled behind the engine was most likely manufactured in from Clark Equipment up in St. Joe Benton Harbor. Here's a Bruce Wukovitz photo from the 80s. This was firmly in Conrail operation. This particular day, the local YDSB2 was returning from Big C Lumber after having dropped off a boxcar or two. Here's a shot of a coal train heading north to the University of Notre Dame. Again, YDSB2. The letters that the Conrail system used were actually pretty easy and pretty simple for fans to understand. The Y stood for yard or way freight. The D stood for Dearborn Division, and of course SP for South Bend, and 2 probably indicating it was the second local train that operated in the area at that time. Another look at Angela Bridge here with a train returning with empties from Notre Dame or possibly even from St. Mary's. Over the years, there were numerous incidents and accidents on the bridge. Here we see a clipping from the South Bend Tribune about Melody Lehman, who was chased by the train and actually run over, but luckily lived to tell. Here we see another shot of that. Numerous things happened over the years. It definitely was a scary type of a bridge. I remember walking across it probably back when I was in the 6th grade. And the thing that bothered me the most was when you looked down and saw the water moving beneath the ties. That's what kind of would freak me out. If I just looked straight ahead, I didn't have any problem. But that current was also kind of strong in that area from what I'm told by area divers. Here we got another South Bend Tribune clipping. This was a derailment that occurred on the bridge back in 1977. 78-car freight train coming through from Niles hit some broken rail. You see the shot of that broken rail on the side there. It looks like it might have just came apart. But here, luckily, the caboose remained on the track. Usually, bridge tracks would have a set of dummy rails in between the 2 running rails, which were for the purpose of keeping cars on the bridge in case of a derailment. But this looks like it stayed on the bridge even without it. You get a look here right in the middle of the notch that was cut by the flange cutting through the ties as it was dragged. Now, if they would have been going at a higher speed, they might have very well ended up in the river, not having those center guardrails. It's hard to tell. Here's just kind of an innocent photo of a Clay High School student using the tracks to cross. It was a familiar place for people to fish and cross back in the day. After service started, though, for safety reasons, the approaches were fenced off on both sides. Here we see a shot probably from some time in the 2000s with rails still in place on the bridge, but padlock in place, and they didn't want anybody going out on it. Another good look here at the bridge before the reconstruction began. And here we see the finished surface of the bridge, guardrails in place, and a nice smooth surface. Another good look here at the finished bridge from the side. No trespassing sign, a Tom Burke photo of when the bridge was cordoned off by the fencing. Another good shot here of the new cement work. Here's another good look at the side view of the completed bridge. Here's another Tom Burke photo. This is kind of showing the painting on the side of the bridge back when you could still make out some of the New York Central System logo. One final look at the completed view of the bridge. Okay, so next up here we're going to take a look at a couple of the other repurposed bridges in the area, actually kind of part of the same trail system here in a way. Again, we see the North-South Michigan Central coming into South Bend. These are two bridges right in here we're going to be looking at over Michigan Street and Leaper Avenue. This was a section of track which came into town down to Niles Avenue. And later we're going to be looking at the Grand Trunk and Western Bridge down here. And unlabeled, there's also another little bridge at Lasalle Avenue we're going to be looking at. So here's an overview of the Michigan Street Bridge here. This gives kind of a good look of the way it looks today, being repurposed as a trail. Here's a good side view of it, South Bend, Michigan Street. Again, we have the railroad designations up there, or what it used to be: Michigan Central, New York Central, Penn Central, and then finally Conrail. This is what the track looked like in the early 80s. This is a photo courtesy of Mr. Tom Burke. This was just shortly before the rails were removed in the early 80s. At this time, it was still used to go down to Niles Avenue. I believe Rose Fuel and Material was one of the final customers still to use the line. Another look back from a Dr. Lewis Marr photograph going back into time. And there we have a shot of a train crossing the bridge on Michigan Street. There's another good look, good close-up of what it looks like today, with the pavement and fencing up to make it safe for walkers and bikers. Here's a cab view, another David Corkhouse photo taken from a train that was crossing the bridge there. You get a real good look at the track. This was a nice winter scene. So next up is Leaper Avenue. the second bridge on our stop, the same trail. This is actually the East Bank Trail is what it's called. This is what it looks like from the side. Good overview of what that bridge looks like. Another train there, Jeff Strombeck, 1974, shows a Penn Central unit operating and crossing the Leaper Bridge. Again, Tom Burke photos showing what the track looked like just like before removal in the early 80s. Another good look at the wood planking and what the bridge looks like. It is currently out of service now in early 2024 for emergency repairs that need to be made on it. But hopefully it will be back in service within the next year or so. Now we come up to the other little bridge we're going to look at. This was a line that branched off from the line we were just looking at. And this is Lasalle Avenue here we have in South Bend. This was the I&M complex and a spur which came in there across the East Race on a little bridge here. And now the next shot we see, this is what it looks like here today, the overview of it. You see the curve of it very well crossing the East Race. This is going way back into time. I believe this is like 1965. The East Race was filled in at this time because the East Race was a waterway, then it was filled in, and then it was reopened to become the East Race we have today. But you can see that curvature here of where the bridge is and where it crossed Lasalle Avenue. Again, another good side view of the bridge where it crosses the East Race for walkers and bikers. Another close-up shot of the bridge again. And now this brings us to our final bridge, which is the Grand Trunk Western Bridge. And this is kind of an overview of town here and what that area looks like. First of all, we see the current alignment now of the Grand Trunk Western, now Canadian National, but how it curves and then joins up the joint trackage with NS through South Bend. But back in the old days, the old main of the Grand Trunk came right straight through here and ran right down Western Avenue, which used to be called Division Street way back when. And so we had this beautiful bridge here. Now, even long after the alignment was moved over to the current alignment we have now, this bridge was still used to reach a number of businesses in this area, which still received freight service probably into the early 70s when the major urban renewal took over and just drastically changed this whole area forever, as we will shortly see. Here's a look from 1965. This shows you how the area looked back then, and man, it's far different as you'll see from how it is now. Lincoln Way actually ran right close to the bridge along the river. Now, this stuff here is all gone, but you can kind of see here at that time there was kind of more of a business industrial area here with trackage and sidings. There was quite a bit going on. Even Northside Boulevard looks a lot different now compared to the way things looked back then. Here's a look at things now with the current bridge set up for walking, and you kind of get an idea already how it's almost more like a park on each side of it. This is an old Sanborn map. Here we have the Lincoln Way West as it was, and you can just see how many tracks were back in this whole area. This would be Division Street, which Western Avenue is what we know it as now, but again, this is all different due to urban renewal, but you can kind of get an idea how many tracks were back in this area. I think this was back in 1917. So these were the really old days, but still you see there was quite a bit of track. You're going a little farther west where there was actually the Grand Trunk Western freight station on Division Street, and again, a lot of trackage. A good close look at what the bridge looks like from the side. Just a very, very uh, great looking bridge. I mean, that's really a solidly built. That's a railroad bridge of a railroad bridge. Here's a look at the side view of the bridge. This is kind of looking to the southwest. You can see the high embankment that exists to the east of the bridge. And another a good look at the overhead. Here now you get a good idea of how things have so drastically changed. You can see now this is all a modern office area with Lincoln Way long gone. Streets have been moved to the west and just a far different area. It's like the bridge now is just a relic from the past in a whole new modern environment. But great that it's been preserved. This here is another look at the final look at the Angela Bridge and how nice that is. It seems to be well taken to, from what I can tell. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to check out our many other videos. If you're interested in some of the lines we talked about today, there are several other videos concerning the history on all of these lines, and more are coming. We are in receipt of more pictures and videos, so we're going to be doing updates on a lot of these. The next couple videos up will be one on the South Shore line into the center of South Bend that ran down Orange Street and Lasalle Avenue. We're going to be taking a deep dive on that and looking at the freight and passenger aspects. Also, we're going to have more of the rare video from David Corkhouse with a lot of action from around the area and some even out of the area. So anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you later.